Okay, so this one is one of my older draft videos for like my abandoned YouTube channel. And without spoiling too much, this video represents a lot of my thoughts and feelings on Cyberpunk's future DLCs. So without further ado, old me.
Magnificent Curtis honestly sounds like a name from an anime. Here's a guy who knows what he is doing. There are a few characters in the world of Cyberpunk that are inherently good, and apparently our pal Curtis over here is one of those guys. So much so that he has gotten the respect from both Spider Murphy and the legendary Rache Bartmoss. The funny thing and the weird thing about this is he is a character who plays for the bad guys. That's right, he is a member of Netwatch. Not only is he an agent of Netwatch, but he is actually the division leader for a specific area or grid that Netwatch looks after, which is called the Pacifica Netwatch Division. But honestly, why the heck should you care about who this guy is? I also found it interesting to further build on Rache's persona, his character, who he is, by first talking about an enemy that he kind of respected. Thus, we are here with this video about Magnificent Curtis. Like I said earlier, Curtis is a Netwatch superior in charge of the Pacifica domain. Now let's get something clear here. When I say Pacifica, I do not mean that proposed resort portion of Night City. I literally mean the Pacific Ocean. Yeah, this thing. So places like Night City, San Diego, LA, Manila, Hong Kong, Fiji, French Polynesia, Hawaii, Australia, and New Zealand are part of this portion of the net that Curtis is in charge of. However, it's kind of weird, but Japan is not included in this grid. Again, just kind of weird. It's a powerhouse, but we find out later that it is because Japan has its own grid called Atlantis, which it shares with, that's right, you guessed it, South America? Anyways, back to the story. In Cyberpunk 2077, because of Johnny, and honestly because of how people feel about the corporations, we are led to believe that every corpo, including Netwatch, they're just scummy. In fact, throughout the source book, Bartmoss verbally, or I guess textually, destroys like 99.99% of the corporations. However, when talking specifically about the Pacifica division of Netwatch, his tone completely changes. Now, he doesn't fully compliment them and say they're like the best thing to have ever happened to the world, but he doesn't describe them with the hate he has for literally anybody else. But there's that mutual respect. There's that brotherhood, some sort of okay, I see what you're doing over there, props. So, why does Bartmoss have this sort of respect for Magnificent Curtis? The simple answer is he has his head on straight, which is extremely rare in the Cyberpunk world. And I think this surprises both Spider Murphy and Bartmoss. They go on to explain that Curtis is just and fair, words not commonly associated with people of power. I guess the Cyberpunk world and our very own reality share this truth. So, what is it about this man that makes him so different? Unfortunately, scouring and reading through the net, we don't get much info about his past. We don't understand why he's this knight in shining armor. It's never explained to us. All we know is that Curtis was born in Fiji.
Okay, so I'm going to cut in a little bit here, new me, because the old me did not, or I completely missed this paragraph that talks a lot about Magnificent Curtis's past and his personality. So I'm just going to go ahead and quote this. I'm going to read this word for word so you guys get a better understanding of who this person is. And I quote, when he started, he used the handle Rocky, but the tag Magnificent Curtis was given to him by runners down in Australia. He earned his name through his attitude and approach towards netrunners. He wanted them to be perfect and to give them a goal to strive for. He tried to be perfect himself. He is fair, even-handed, slow to lose his temper, but quick to respond. He has a strict regard for the law of the land and an encyclopedic knowledge of the territorial laws of each of the countries covered by the Pacifica region. He makes sure that runners never break any of those laws. He likewise demands that his runners never do anything to alienate the innocent runners in the net. Under this guidance, the Pacifica Netwatch Ice Wolves have captured a lot of criminals, both corporate and independent. They ensure that their prisoners are dealt with fairly according to the laws of the land, and not summarily executed by some angry corporate runner. The Pacifica branch of Netwatch has become a respected organization, which is very rare in this day and age, and through his influence, Fiji has become their main base of operations. As a result, this small island has some of the best security around.
Magnificent Curtis himself is a man with vision and drive. In fact, he's a lot like the yin to Rache Bartmoss's yang. He's calm, quiet, and law-abiding, but he shares the same zeal, enthusiasm, and dedication to his work as Rache. This, of course, means that if the two of them ever got together, they'd be at each other's throats in a minute. End quote. Oh lordy, lots to talk about. So first, I will point this out. I believe his stubbornness to do good may be his biggest downfall or weakness. The fact that he treats prisoners fairly is where I can see him possibly dying. As much as I want to say he is too skilled to get killed, corporals like Era and Militech have too much resources to allow a rival captured netrunner survive in whatever prison Curtis has held him in. Also, you work too closely with the law of the land, then eventually very evil criminals may be allowed to be set free. So there are downsides to having his virtue. It's impressive, but possibly his biggest weakness. The next part, where it states that he is someone who seeks perfection with himself and his team, is pretty cool. The fact that he does it while abiding by the laws is impressive. Most people we meet use money and power to get what they want. In Magnificent's case, he's just that good that eventually he got to the point where good is no longer good enough, and now he seeks perfection through quote-unquote normal means. All I'm saying here is don't mess with his team.
Anyways, Curtis was such a great man that he was able to shape the Pacific division of Netwatch into what it is supposed to be. Netwatch was created to be policemen of the net. Now, because of their terrible rep and doing BS corporal blackmail stuff, no one believed Netwatch could fulfill what it sought out to be. But the Pacifica division of Netwatch under Curtis did just that. Spider Murphy says it best. So listen up and listen close. Now wait a minute, Cyberpunks, and listen before you go frothing at the mouth like the esteemed Bartmoss. When I say policemen, I'm not talking about corporate cops. And I'm not talking the typical sadistic ego trippers which patrol most cities. I am referring to the idealized image of police that cultures the world over have held to for years, but seldom realize the protector of the innocent. She believes him to be the closest thing we got to the knight in shining armor. You can also see here that Spider Murphy is kind of talking how we have someone like Bartmoss, and she's comparing most cyberpunks and how as soon as you say police officer, everyone's gonna be mad and crazy, and that's because most people believe police officers, Netwatch agents, to be corrupt. And when she says don't go frothing at the mouth like the esteemed Bartmoss, that's because Bartmoss is such a shit talker. He'll look at a corporate and be like, yo, no, there's some blackmail stuff, there's some fraud, something is going on behind the scenes. And that's why, honestly, he's going out there and scouring the net to unravel all these secrets. But she is explaining that most people view policemen in such a way, which in their world, and honestly our world, is a correct, maybe in some cases, way to look at the police. However, again, Netwatch in Pacifica does not run that way. She views him in such a way that he is like a God-sent person who's doing good and right things. That is high praise from someone like Murph. Let's face it, if Rache, Murph, Johnny, Rogue, the whole lot of them are technically the good guys fighting for our social freedom, then the corrupt world they are trying to overthrow are technically the bad guys. But in the case of Curtis, he has proven, at least to Rache and Murph, that if done correctly, justice can be found when power is not abused. Basically, a good guy fighting a rotten war. They go on to explain that Curtis demands perfection from his people, which again is a weird thing, given how quickly people of power choose to take the easy path instead. What I mean is, killing higher ups, taking money, blackmail, extortion, all that crazy stuff. He doesn't do that. He even sends his men in groups of 4 to prevent things such as bribery. They go on to explain that peer pressure coming from a good place can actually benefit people. Along with all that, most of the Netwatch agents in the Pacifica region are older heads. In movies, we see older characters closer to retirement taking bribes because, well, they want to have a nice ass retirement. But nope, not Curtis's squad. They use maturity and a genuine moral compass to help keep the net safe. If only all the other regions were patrolled the same way, then maybe people would actually trust Netwatch. This brings me to some interesting kind of theories and ideas. So everything I'm going to be saying from this point onward is like my own speculation, my own thought, things I have added to kind of stir the pot. Now, remember, the Netwatch agent that held Brigitte captive in the game. Yeah, this fool. My first thought after reading all this info was, why was he alone? And it made me think, maybe when they say send in squads of 4, that doesn't literally mean that they're all there beside each other. So maybe he was a squad of 4, part of a squad of 4, and he was just kind of like taking care of that specific area when he was either killed or not killed, when he was doing his thing. So I think that if he was like alone in that scene, he was in communication with the rest of his squad. This just, again, like I mentioned earlier, opens up the opportunity for the DLC to come in. Like, imagine Curtis finding out what happened with that specific Netwatch agent. Again, whether or not you killed him or not, this will obviously be reported to him because he's in charge of the entire region. So it brings up maybe possible consequences based on our decisions, almost like how, you make decisions in the game, and then if you kill the guy, certain gangs will fight you and all that fun stuff. But in this case, if you kill the Netwatch agent, Curtis will be kind of like reluctant to work with you, versus if you didn't kill him, then he'd be more willing to be like, oh, he can negotiate with this person and he's not stupid. So I think there is a possibility of that. Who knows? Again, let a guy dream. I hope CDPR gets things right, but that's just one of the speculations I have in my mind. The other thing that pops up in my brain is when I was making previous videos talking about alt, talking about the net, like a little bit here and there when I was making those theory videos, I did come up with, I did find a specific piece of info, which was alt is working with Netwatch behind the black wall. At the time when I made those videos, I was under the impression that Netwatch, every Netwatch agent was bad. Because again, like, when you play Cyberpunk and when you read the source books, like any corpo is just a bad mix. So I thought alt working with Netwatch is not good. Something bad is about to happen. But now with this, I kind of feel that alt and Netwatch behind the black wall may actually be doing something good. It makes me believe that they might pull not all corpos in the game are as bad as you think. I think it's interesting because they could definitely delve into more of the alt, the black wall, Netwatch, Voodoo Boys, and maybe, just maybe, this can talk a little bit about the rogue AIs that I've been referring to in other videos as well.
Okay, so before we conclude this video, I want to talk about the fact that Rache and Curtis are rivals in some way. This was the title of the video, and I realized I never actually spoke about it. If we remember the quote, Murph states that Curtis is the yin to Rache's yang. That in it of itself is telling enough. If you are into anime as much as I am, this is a very common trope used where two enemies of like opposing sides have mutual respect for the other due to their values and beliefs. I am in love with this idea. This is the exact opposite of like Blackhand versus Smasher. With Rache and Curtis, they have the potential of actually working together. In fact, it would be cool if in some way Rache was able to create some sort of copy of himself in the net, like how Alt technically is alive in the net and is currently being protected by Curtis. I think this could turn out to be a pretty awesome avenue to take when it comes to the recently announced DLC. It could work out something like Rache is actually working with Netwatch, but he's currently like their captive because he still did illegal stuff. So I do see Curtis most likely like, saying, hey, yeah, you have to work for us for you to be set free. Something like that. And that would be kind of awesome. And I think this is especially like possible because I also thought that the next expansion would heavily involve Pacifica. This is where we can find the Voodoo Boys, where we originally spoke with Alt. This just makes me believe that the access point to the Black Wall can only be found in Pacifica itself. I think like all these points would just make it a much more intriguing place for the DLC to happen. But there is more to this yin and yang thing. What about their skill in running the net itself? I believe that in this context, Magnificent Curtis is slightly lower than Rache, but also higher than Murph when it comes to pure skill. And I think the biggest advantage Rache has over Curtis is the fact that Magnificent Curtis probably uses the very best tech without additional mods. I say this only because of his values of being like law-abiding, and in most cases, taking a piece of tech and modding it falls outside of that virtue. So Rache's advantage is that he has abilities and tactics that revolves around utilizing every cheesy build he can come up with, where Curtis unfortunately limits himself due to his personal values. So I think Spider Murphy's analysis about Curtis being the yin to Bartmoss's yang is a perfect analogy. We have one guy, Bartmoss, who is hell-bent on exposing corpos for who they really are. And we respect his crusade because if we, anyone who's played this game or has read any sort of source books or any books in the genre of Cyberpunk, we understand that corporations are literally the biggest bad guy out there and they're just scummy and disgusting. Rache is out there to try and expose them for who they really are, and we enjoy this. We enjoy this because it's kind of relatable to maybe real life, so we respect that. It's just fun for me to notice and to see characters that are on the opposite spectrum of things. Curtis has the ability, he has the power because he is within a corporation, and here he is actually doing good stuff. And to me, that is fascinating. I may be heavily influenced by One Piece right now. It's a lot about, freedom and justice. Character we can look at is Kobe or Garp. Like, these guys are respected whether you are a pirate or a marine. So as long as you're that kind of person who has, values and has a moral compass, fans and anybody reading or watching don't consider these people evil. Whereas there is the Gorosei, who are, people who seek to genuinely oppress as many and have slaves. So you can kind of tell that, yes, I get it. As we grow up, it's not as easy as good and bad. But, at the end of the day, isn't people or are people doing good things technically a good person, whether or not they are a cyberpunk, edge runner, or even a net runner? So I kind of went in a roundabout fashion just to explain that Curtis and Bartmoss are two different sides on the same coin. I genuinely think that if they actually just figured things out and worked together, goddamn, they would be unstoppable. There are other theories that I have coming up, and I think having some sort of team up like this would make sense because what I'm seeing and what I'm reading from Reddit and forum pages talks about, rogue AIs. I think having some sort of like OP squad of netrunners is important to have, given the fact that rogue AIs, if we consider that maybe, Mr. Blue Eyes is one of those rogue AIs and Night Corp is a company controlled completely by rogue AIs, having, again, like an all-star cast of netrunners protect us or at least help us to prevent, some sort of AI apocalypse would be fantastic. But yeah, so I am looking forward to how CDPR will kind of manipulate the source books and how they will actually follow through with the potential and the possibility of having an all-out rogue AI war.
But yeah, that's it for me in this video, guys. I enjoyed kind of editing / revising this old video that I have for my abandoned channel, because I can already see that even back then, I, for whatever reason, am looking for a good person in this sad, dark, and, you know, evil world. And it's just fun because this was what, year 1 when I recorded this, and you guys can tell by the footage that it is really old. But yeah, my perspective and my views haven't really changed. I'm always out there trying to find a simplistic answer, even though, you know, people in the comment section have explained there's no way you can have that. It's fine, you know, it's from your own point of view. If I can quote Obi-Wan himself, everyone has their own perspective on things, and that's the fun part about this. I'm looking at this as a piece of work, and it's just, hey, this is how I look at this painting or video game in this case, and I like seeing or hearing what you guys think as well. So, you know, leave all that stuff in the comment section below and let's talk about it. No hostilities though, because that ain't cool. Anyways, guys, that will do it for me in this video. Hope you enjoyed. Please leave a thumbs up. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. That's it for me in this one, Chumbas, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.